What's up, guys? Beautiful Sunday afternoon, and we are out here with Corey in my Corrado's twin. It's so awesome to see them together. It's also really cool to me too because I remember seeing this car, which was featured in it's your tuner, right?
That's right. Yep.
I remember seeing pictures of this car online, and I was just like, oh, and I didn't even realize it's actually a local car to me here in Pennsylvania. Now we got them together, so it's so cool to see him. So today he's going to go over the entire car, tell us the story of the car, what's all done to it, and give us the scoop.
What's going on, everybody? As you can see, my car started its life out a lot similar to the way Matt's is right now as far as the interior goes. It was one of the few that came with the gray cloth. I ended up changing mine out as a youngster. Looking back in hindsight, I wish I might have kept it, but I'm still satisfied with the way my car turned out now. So I think Matt's going to show some pictures of my car when I first got it. There's already some aftermarket mods on here before I started playing around with it. Some of this stuff was up to my liking, and other stuff was just stuff that I wanted to change out based on other experiences that I've had. The previous owner was a friend of mine that I work with, and one day he showed up working with this car, and at the time I was driving a 16 valve Scirocco, and from my past experiences with VWs, I was only really exposed to the 8 valve and the 16 valve motor. So seeing the VR6 inside a coupe that resembled what my Scirocco was something that I kind of fell in love with. He had a boiler muffler on it, and I'm pretty sure that was about it at the time when he first purchased it. And just hearing that tone with the VR6 sound and the boiler muffler was enough to for me to fall in love. He ended up passing it on to another friend, and he did the majority of the mods that you see there in the pictures. And I was fortunate enough to buy it from him, so it only exchanged one hand from the first time I actually saw the car, and spent a good bit of time in this car before I even owned it. So that's pretty cool. A friend of mine who had a 95 Jetta VR6. He was the first person I know that had a turbocharger installed on a VR motor. So after getting a ride with that car, it was, lo and behold, I had to do it. I saved up my money until we got to the point where it was time to do it. So yeah, I'll go ahead and get the motor or the hood pop for you, so you can take a look and see what's happened with the transformation. So when I first bought this car, it was actually my daily. I got it in 2000. I was still a senior in high school. I put close to 10,000 miles on it. Naturally aspirated. Like I said, during that time I was saving, trying to build up some funds to make this car a little bit more fun. So the company that I ended up deciding to go with was EIP Tuning. Not sure if most of you guys are familiar with EIP Tuning. They're currently not in business anymore, but at the time they were one of the few companies that actually offered a turbocharger kit for the VR6 motor. So I don't know if you want to come over and kind of see how it's all assembled, but it actually utilizes the factory cast downpipe, or a portion of the downpipe, and then from there you might be able to see it better from this side. And then from there, where it normally splits into a Y for just a naturally aspirated downpipe, you'll see that's where their fabrication comes to play. Starting off with the wastegate, eventually leading down to the downpipe and turbo setup. So eventually, as you guys all know, turbocharging for the VR6 started to evolve, and you got something more similar to what Matt's going on, where it's just a cast manifold up top, a little bit more appropriately placed turbocharger. But for what it is, and for what the time frame was, where I was you know, dabbling with this, it was the only thing available. And as you can see here, 20 years later, it still runs and drives. There was a few things that EIP, I guess I'll say they did some shady work while my car was there, and that was unfortunately one of the things that they were known for and why they're not in business anymore. But fortunately, we have a local place in Lebanon, Pennsylvania here called Automotive Performance Tuning, and they were able to kind of rectify and remedy the things that EIP was slacking on. I'm not going to get into details because it's really not worth shitting on anyone out here. So, but either way, like I said, AP Tuning definitely got this car to where it is now, where it's reliable. I've driven this car numerous times to Ocean City, Maryland, on 200, 300 mile journeys without any hesitation and without any issues. So yeah, you can see I'm also running a Schimmel performance intake manifold. That came later, after the fact. When this car was originally boosted, this charge pipe right here that comes off of the side mount intercooler, which you might be able to capture the side mount from inside the wheel well. There you go. So this charge pipe, it actually used to be flipped, and it was facing this direction. And I might be able to grab a photo for Matt too to see how, because my original turbo kit used the factory manifold, which of course the throttle body was back here, and this charge pipe went all the way back. So there was a whole lot of unnecessary plumbing involved that was kind of losing some power. So what I ended up doing was utilizing the Schimmel short runner, and fortunately this charge pipe was interchangeable. Didn't have to really do much other than just relocate where the blow-off valve was located. Along with that modification, it was time to step up the software. The previous engine management from EIP was kind of old school technology. It used a rise to rate, and the fuel delivery was kind of sketchy. It worked good up until about 12 psi, and then from there you really had some running issues. So a company called C2 Motorsports, they developed software for the OBD1 VR6, and that's what you see here now. I've got the green top 42-pound injectors. It also utilizes a 4-inch mass airflow sensor housing, and then, like I said, their software as well. So it's pretty simple from this generation, just a solder in chip and you're good to go. But the overall drivability and performance changed a whole lot from changing software. And where I was limited before, like I said, around 12 psi, now I can safely run 15 psi. Before my numbers were, see, at 12 psi, I think it was 275 wheel, and like around high 250s for foot-pounds of torque. I don't remember exactly what it was, but with this setup, at 15 psi, we're running closer to 325 wheel and 356 foot-pounds. So it made a drastic change in fuel delivery, especially with the torque, which everyone knows torque is where power comes from. So only other motor modifications that I possibly might want to do, everyone's probably going to say you should just switch it to OBD2 and free up some possible issues, but I don't know. I want to kind of stick to the roots somewhat with this car. There might be a time where I change to OBD2, but at this point I'm pretty satisfied with the way things run. For the amount of time I drive this car, it's the little hesitations and issues I have are really not that bad. But I do have a 3-inch downpipe, which the car is not factory, but it's currently sitting on a 2.5-inch downpipe. So that'd be one thing that could maybe release a little bit more horsepower. Would also require upgrading my wastegate and just kind of changing some things around, but down the road that might happen. So I guess that pretty much covers the motor. The transmission has it's a factory O2A Corrado 5-speed. It's been rebuilt, factory gear set. There is a Pelican limited slip differential. That was one thing that totally transformed the way the car drives. Anyone who has a VR6 turbo or any type of high horsepower VR6, I definitely recommend getting some type of limited slip in there, whether it's the Pelican or the Quaife. They both perform pretty well. Does yours have one?
Yeah, Pelican.
Yeah, so you're familiar with that. Yeah, other than that, like I said, the tranny's stock. It's got a new speed, I guess, short shift kit, which has been on there since I bought the car. Other than that pretty much covers everything going on under the hood here. I guess next we could go to suspension and wheels. What I got here is the 16 by 8 D90. They're Porsche wheels. Factory, they would have came staggered 16 by 8 in the back and 16 by 6 in the front, but I was able to source a set of 2 rears. Obviously you don't want to run a 6-inch wheel tire with a 325 wheel front wheel drive horsepower car, so try to get a little bit more traction if we can. But yeah, they're mated with some BF Goodrich G-Force KDWs. Suspension is Coney Sport adjustable coilovers. That's adjustable ride height and also dampening. And then as far as brakes, I have factory VR6 rotors, but I did upgrade the calipers to a Willwood Dynalite 4-piston caliper. And that's another thing I recommend. Anyone who's hitting highway speeds, you know what you're capable of if you have a car like this. You want to be able to slow down just as quickly as you're getting up to those speeds. So the Willwood brake upgrade was definitely something I'm happy I did. I guess as far as cosmetics go, you can see it does have some aftermarket side skirts on the car right now. That was actually provided to the car, or provided with the car when I bought it. And then I also have a side L rear diffuser, or bumper and diffuser in the back as well. That was added on as a result of a mishap accident that was encountered in. I won't get into too big of details about it, but let's just say my rear bumper wasn't repairable. So at the time, even I think it was 2002 when this happened, rear Corrado bumpers were not available to be purchased through insurance companies. They couldn't buy it through VW. So the only outlet was to buy something like this, and that's possibly something too that I might switch around in the future if I get the right itch for it. But for now, paint's still holding up nice on it. It's really no use of changing it out. But other than that, the front end of the car, as you could all see, just had the factory 90mm European lip, European E-codes, smoked of course, and everything else is pretty much factory up there. Turn signals and fogs, they're all factory. You can see I smoked out the rear tails and fogs. I'm sorry, rear tails and the turn signals. So they're basically just sanded down all the raised areas that were normally embossed, sanded them down to a smooth finish, and then used the old-fashioned gloss spray that you buy from AutoZone, tinted them out, and then cleared them off, and they're holding up well as well, so I can't really complain. Let's see, anything else on the outside to see? We are rocking a Borla 3-inch muffler. Like I said, it's a 2.5-inch downplate, but from there it joins to a 3-inch no cat directly into this 3-inch Borla. My first experience with a VR6 was with a Borla exhaust on it, and from there I never looked back. Don't get me wrong, I like the tones that other companies provide, but the Borla is just for me the cream of the crop, you know. So yeah, let's the trunk here and see what we got. I don't know if you guys saw these in the market. I must have been late, but apparently they've been out for a little while now. But they make, company on eBay sells them. They make various different versions. You can get 16 valve, VR6 turbo, GTI, whatever your car of choice is, you know. But it kind of, it's a throwback to the old keys, and it actually has a, I know you won't be able to see because it's bright, but it's got an LED light here too, so you don't key up your door when you're trying to get in at nighttime. All right, so you can see I have a full-size spare wheel. That was something when I upgraded the brakes. The factory donut wouldn't clear the calipers anymore, so I wanted to make sure I had an adequate spare in the back just in case anything would happen. And fortunately, I haven't had to put it to use yet. So, but yeah, as you can see, there's also a roll bar. This was installed by the guys I mentioned earlier in Lebanon at AP Tuning. I'm not sure if this is a service they provide anymore, but at the time it was something that was available. I'll open the doors. So like I was saying, my car started its life out a lot like Matt's did on the inside. If you want to take a closer look, you can see the first thing was basically an entire interior. I sourced a G60 that had black leather, so I took the door cards, the rear panels, all the trim, the A, B, and C pillar. At the time I took the headliner out and I had that recovered. You also see that it's a non-sunroof car, so that just made life easier in general, having a Corrado, not having to deal with the sunroof. But some of the other mods I did on the inside was, you can see the Recaro trophy seats. They came out of a Mark II Jetta GLI. I switched out the factory steering wheel for a Momo Monte Carlo. Also the shift knob is a Momo, and I have a series of dual gauge cluster pod on the A pillar, and then where this cigarette ashtray lighter used to be, I put a series of 3 gauges in there as well. So you'll be able to see a little bit closer when Matt gets in there what the gauges are. Besides that, it's still the factory OEM dash, so that's the only gray part that's still on the inside. And you'll probably know why I didn't want to switch that out. Also see here, obviously this side gets a lot of use getting in and out, so the paint's not as pretty as what it once was, but just shows you some use and some love going into this car. But so it's welded in place down here on the actual undercarriage of the car. There's another weld spot here on the undercarriage, and then that hoop joins over with a crossbar here, and then as you already saw in the back, it joins into a split with the crossbar going between the rear strut towers. That alone made a big difference with stiffening up the overall feel of the car. I can't say that I've tracked the car to say whether it's made a big experience autocrossing or going like higher speeds, but just the way of driving on regular roads and things like that, it's a world of difference. The only problem and the result is, looking back in hindsight, just getting in and over the roll bar is the pain in the ass part, trying to make it comfortable, but that's one of the things you sacrifice, you know. So yeah, I don't know if there's too much more to cover on.
So tell us about the name.
Oh, okay. So yeah, the name Mengele came from.
So like got the plate up here.
You'll see and this license plate is basically where the name came from. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the original EIP VR6 Turbo Corrado, but they had a clever Euro plate where it said VR666. And I always admired that. I always thought it was cool. It kind of brought out like the evil and sinister side of what's going on under the hood of this otherwise, you know, not too frightening looking car, you know. So when this car became turbocharged and I was getting serious with you know, putting the build together, a bandmate of mine at the time, I used to be in a band, we were sitting around trying to think of things to come up with that would be you know, interesting for a new name. And he said, dude, you got to go with Angel of Death. At the time, Slayer was his favorite band, and don't get me wrong, Slayer is one of my bands too. But so yeah, we went with Angel of Death off the classic Slayer song. Unfortunately, Angel of Death doesn't fit on the license plate, so Mengele was the next option, and I figured, what the hell, this is the way to do it. So Mengele's been on there ever since. I've gotten some hate over it. Unfortunately, some people seem to think that I'm some type of anti-Semitic person, or like I hate Jewish people, and that I'm some type of Nazi. But anyone who knows me knows that that's not the case. My grandfather fought against the Nazis in World War II, so if anything, I've got strong hate against the whole organization. So like I said, anyone who's a hater, you gotta look past that side of it. Think of Slayer, Angel of Death.
Thanks so much, Corey, for sharing your car with us. It's just really sweet car. I especially just love the fact that, how many years did you have it?
It's 20 years now. Yeah,
20 years now. So just to hear about like the transformation of the car from where it was to where it is now, and how it just keeps slowly building it and building it. That's just really cool to see. So hopefully next time you guys see this car, we'll be cruising to a show. We'll see when this whole COVID-19 thing finishes up, but yep, hopefully we'll see some more of these two cars together.
Peace, guys.